Hello, welcome to the Raw podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. My name's James Copley, and I'm delighted to be joined by my old mate, Connor Bromley, for a Raw podcast debut. Connor, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm glad to be making a debut. What a time to make a debut after a special weekend at Sunderland.
I know it's not bad, is it? And I think we worked it out the other day, isn't it? It's about 7 or 8 years since we've been on a podcast together.
Yeah, I would guess that our last podcast together would either be the Wolves final day of the championship season or possibly the Fulham away game, which was second last. So that's what, yeah, end of the 2018 season, 17-18 season. So pretty long time since me and you have blessed the airways with our presence together.
I don't think anybody will remember us together on the old Roker Report podcast anymore. I think we're that old now that I think it's gone by the wayside, hasn't it? And there's so many good podcasts around now that I don't think anybody really remembers us.
No, I don't think so. And it's funny, at Wembley, I was sat next to a kid, and he must have been about 15 years old. And when we won the game, he was like, I can't believe Sunderland are going to be in the Premier League. That's never happened. And I was like, God, that really puts it into perspective of how long ago it was that we were doing our podcast, because that kid would have been like 7, probably never been in the stadium a light, and now he's 15 buzzing at Wembley to be in the Premier League, and it's pretty much an adult.
I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Because we started featuring on that Roker Report podcast when Sunderland had just been relegated to the Championship. And we were studying at the University of Sunderland at the time as well, both doing sports journalism under Neil Farrington, having a great time. But at the beginning of that season, we never thought we'd get relegated to League One, never mind spend 4 seasons there. Like, the stuff that's happened in those 7-8 years is crazy. Playoff final losses, heartbreak, semi-final losses. It's been some journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I felt that on Saturday. You know what it is I'm getting I say a little bit older. I mean, I'm only 31. It's like I'm an old man. But as I've got a little bit older, and when I grew up, Sunderland were pretty good, largely, growing up as a kid. Yeah. They were in the Championship, but they've been promoted. But on Saturday, I felt like a bit of a wave of emotion, more so than I even felt in the playoff final, that God, that journey we've been through. And even on a personal level for me, you do Roker Report stuff, you work for the club, you come out, you get made redundant in COVID. The club's at its lowest point when I was there. And I don't know if I take blame for that, but they were at the lowest ebb.
I don't think you can take any blame for that, Connor. I think there are a couple of other people that can take some blame for that.
Probably. Maybe I didn't help, but they were at the lowest ebb, though. We were seeing Sunderland in, I remember even being buzzing about scoring last minute winners away at Rochdale and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Positive memories, but last minute winners at Rochdale who are now in the National League. Morgan, who nearly went out of business, really played there 3 or 4 years ago. To see where the club is now, it's mental, and you can't help but feel that tinge of emotion on Saturday when Ready to Go's blasting as the players come out and the stadium's full and it's a sunny day and we've got players like Granit Xhaka, donning the beautiful red and white stripes. It's absolutely bonkers to think where we even were 3 or 4 years ago to where we are now.
No, absolutely. We'll come on to the West Ham game, Connor, but I wanted to talk, a little bit about that period that you had at Sunderland Association Football Club. I don't think people will be too familiar with the history, but you actually got a job, your dream job, working in the media team. What was that like? And then the disappointment of it coming to an end. And I really felt for you at the time, watching from afar. It seemed like such a bad situation. Obviously, the club wasn't doing too well. As a fan, it must have been hard. Professionally, it must have been hard. But you've done okay since, so all's well that ends well.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think it was the right sort of fit for me. I didn't love that sort of job. Not to make this into a full as woe was me thing. I did enjoy being in there, but people behind the curtain, when this is the thing that you love, this is you'll have it covering Sunderland as a journalist as well. But when you're behind that curtain and you see all the interactions, you see sort of the things you don't expect to see, whether it's squabbles among players, whether it's when Aidan McGeady got dropped from Sunderland and stuff, and you're in there and you're seeing these things and you can't talk about the stuff that's going on, and it's not great necessarily to have that peel behind the curtain. And I think sometimes on Saturday, while it would be amazing to obviously be working the game and sat in the press box and stuff, and in a lot of ways it's better to be a fan. Being a fan, you can love it. You just love it. It's your thing. You're buzzing about it. You're not worrying about anything else. It's just that's the thing you're doing. So I get why people want to do it, like that sort of job. Like, yeah, it is really, really good. And I think, when we were coming through together, we talked about the dream being and whether it be working for the club or working for the Echo as you do
Well,
now.
that was the thing. We fantasized about that job that you got to do, and it turns out that at the time it just wasn't what we thought.
No, well, you got to remember. I mean, it's like Stuart Donald, Charlie Methvin.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, me and Charlie Methvin. I mean, not that. I mean, I like Charlie Methvin. Controversial. Me and him got along pretty well, but my God, we used to have some arguments because my views on the world was just so opposite. His views on everything, football, politics, and stuff. I mean, I remember going to an Asherton working men's club with Charlie Methvin, and when we were walking in the door, he was like, "If my mates knew I was here right now, they would be laughing."
That's why I struggle with Charlie Methven, because it's a little bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing situation. It's funny you should say that about wanting to be a fan and stuff, because I do feel that in my job, it's an absolute privilege and I love it. I love every second waking up in the morning. Doesn't actually feel like going to work at times. Love the people I work with. It is fantastic. But I was saying to my friend Ken today when I was out walking the dog that hopefully it doesn't end for a long time. But when it does end, I am really looking forward to that first game back as a season ticket holder, because that'll be the first thing I do is go and buy a season ticket. And it's hard, particularly at times like Wembley and Coventry at home, when you just want to go absolutely nuts, but you can't because you're in a press box. It is difficult finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, being an alleged professional who can't.
Alleged is the right word.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I remember. I mean, I think it was different when you work for the club. You can wear that a little bit more. You can cheer a little bit more when you've got the Sunderland badge on. But yeah, when you're a journalist, it's frowned upon, isn't it, to celebrate.
It is a little bit. In terms of how it ended for you at Sunderland, though, I remember listening to Chris Brown, and I don't know if sort of you felt this, but when he left the club and was told that you had to go, obviously he's a Sunderland fan, his dad played for Sunderland, but he then found it really difficult to reconnect until years later. Did you find that initially, or was it just a case of, well, it's over, but the club's still here and I'm still a fan?
It's difficult, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel any sort of jealousy that I wasn't there. Like, I didn't feel like oh God, I should be covering. Although I did a little bit. I remember the League One playoff final, Conor Gardner, who's like a media person at Sunderland, who people probably don't know, but I remember he was on the pitch like for the celebrations, and I was like, that actually suppose could have been me, really, considering all the things. But no, I slipped back into it quite quickly. I just love Sunderland, and it's just always been my thing. And I think as well, I'm from a Newcastle supporting area, and I live in Gateshead now, which is pretty. Actually, it's surprising the amount of Sunderland fans that live in Gateshead, but it is obviously a Mag heavy area.
Jason Jones, our reporter at the Echo, lives in Gateshead. Big Sunderland fan.
Matty Hewitt, who's Chronicle, he covers Sunderland a lot. Or he used to be the Chronicle, he covers Sunderland a lot as well, and he lives in Gateshead. I sometimes see him at Gateshead games, but yeah, I live in a Mag heavy area, and that I think intensifies your fandom, doesn't it? Because I'm having to defend my football club like all the time. And most of my friends are Newcastle fans. I mean, the amount of my friends who, even when Sunderland are signing players now, are like, I don't even know who they are. And I was like, you've just heard of Granit Xhaka, mate. That's it. They're just like, oh, Xhaka has a good bit of business. But that's a wider point in football generally, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if you listen to the pundits do their previews, but like, I listen to the rest of Football's Premier League preview. They gave Sunderland about 90 seconds, and they were just like, say Sunderland just aren't good enough. No analysis, no discussion of what they've done, signing young players. They're not good enough, they'll go down. Right, cool. Thumbs up.
I mean, that the match of the day analysis from Wayne Rooney, I thought was good, but I just thought the Shearer thing was completely bizarre. Whether it was supposed to be a joke or not, it didn't really come across that way. Like, for those that haven't watched it, he just sort of didn't say anything and looked quietly fuming when he was asked by Mark Chapman. But I can remember Shearer back in the day actually giving us a fair amount of credit, especially under Steve Bruce. I thought it was weird, to be honest. But I do think you're right. I think a lot of pundits maybe are sleeping on us a little bit, but that is easy to say after you've just hummed West Ham 3-0 at home.
Yeah, no, it is. And it would be very, very different if, Dan Ballard doesn't care that chance off the line. And if, because I was talking, my cousin's a Leeds fan, and he was talking to him today about obviously they're playing against Everton. And I'd said to him, like, people talk about the atmosphere of Sunderland and Leeds, like, oh, it's worth, X amount of points over a season. And I was like, yeah, but Sunderland at the weekend, the atmosphere was incredible. It was. Sunderland go 1-0 down in 10 minutes and then are struggling to get a foothold on the game. that atmosphere is a hindrance. It's toxic in there. It's not nice. We've all been at Sunderland when it's been like that. And Ellen Road is the same. If Leeds are losing 1 or 2-0 tonight by half time, that crowd is going to be going bananas because they're expecting to be doing all right. So it's funny how football works. Now everyone's talking about how amazing the Sunderland atmosphere was. I've seen reports where, like, you know, BBC 5 Live couldn't hear the producers the headphones and stuff. And, like, God, you hear so many good stories that make you proud to be a Sunderland fan. Like, yeah, do you know what? We are absolutely massive, and the fan base is awesome. And when it's electric like it is, it's class. But you've also got to, you know, factor in it can be a hindrance this season. If we're losing games, if we're 2-0 down against Brentford after 20 minutes, it's not going to be a nice place to be. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that about Elland Road, actually, because under Mike Dodd, Sunderland went there and I covered the game. It was 0-0. We played like 5 at the back. It was a bit of a Doddsy masterclass, actually. And the Elland Road crowd, because Leeds were going for promotion at the time, but looking like they were showing the first signs of maybe bottling it. And I remember thinking the crowd that day, I was like, wow, this is bordering on a little bit toxic. Fast forward, Sunderland go there under Régis Le Bris. We take the lead, but then those 2 Pascal Struijk goals, the crowd really stuck with Leeds and the team that day. And it was a really, really good atmosphere. And I think it really helped sort of power them on. So it is interesting you say about the crowd. What I would say is that the past, like, 4 games or 5 games really with Sunderland, I think they've sort of embedded this little bit of belief in the crowd. I'd like to think that maybe this team have earned Connor like a little bit of leeway if things do go slightly south during the season, which, let's face it, it's probably going to happen, isn't it, with Sunderland being in the Premier League. I mean, I watched the Liverpool-Bournemouth game and that scared me deeply, to be honest, because the quality on display. So I think there's going to be tough times, but I think hopefully there's a bit of a connection between the manager, the playing staff, you know, the coaches and the fans now, where they'll get a bit of leeway if they do, you know, put it in on the field and they do run and they do try hard.
Yeah, and you see, I've seen a lot about the running stats this morning and how you know, Sunderland had, like, I think it's 4 of the top 5 runners. It was obvious on Saturday, though, that, like, I hate to say you wanted it more. Obviously, they're professional footballers. Every team wants it a lot, but it does just feel like on Saturday, you know, we wanted that result so much. And West Ham obviously wanted it as well, but we just looked like we were determined to get something out of the game. And I think that fans can see that. You can see if the team's trying. Even when, like, you know, Ronaldo, there was a point where he lost the ball on the edge of the box and he's not, like, worried about it. He's just like, right, get back in position, figure it out, make sure you're back in there. Dingra did it a couple of times, and the fans don't mind that. If you take on a man and you lose the ball, don't sulk about it. Just go back in position and get it. I mean, if I'm playing 5-a-side, I'll sulk about it and I won't get back in position. But I suppose I'm not a professional footballer. But this is why they get paid the big bucks, and you can see the difference in quality in the team compared to last season. I know you're playing against better quality teams, but that midfield 3 that Sunderland have got, it's one game. I don't want to get, like, too OTT.
I think we're allowed to get carried away for once. Yeah, like, just for once in our entire history, we can get a bit carried away.
I agree, and I think that those 3 playing together with Enzo Lefebvre backing them up, and even, you know, Dan Neil. I know there's issues around Dan Neil, and, you know, Chris Riggs probably not going to play a ton of games this season. He'll certainly start, but that midfield 3 of Siddiqui, Diarra, and Xhaka, that is a scarily built midfield 3. And the way the recruitment team has put that together, where you've got Xhaka, who covered a lot of yards. I mean, I know people are like, oh, you know, he needs the legs round him. Well, he's covering a lot in that game.
I think he was 2nd or 3rd, wasn't he?
Yeah, and then you stick the pace of Siddiqui and Diarra and everything that they bring. It's frightening. And that midfield 3 will get Sunderland points this season. I think it helps out defensively and in the attack as well, just the protection they offer.
I think what's really good about that midfield 3 is that it's quite finely balanced. So Habib Diarra, I really like him because when he gets the ball, his first thought is to look up and either drive forward with it or play it forward. Now, he's probably going to lose the ball at times, but I don't sort of mind that because that's his game and that's fine. And you need players like that. But when you've got a Noah Siddiqui who's covering a lot of ground and he drops into the left back and the right back position, even centre back a couple of times when people were piling forward, and then you've got Xhaka sort of orchestrating behind that. I think it's a really impressive midfield balance. And I think what was even more impressive is that Sunderland, as they tend to under Régis Le Bris, surrendered quite a bit of the ball as well, but they still had that tactical discipline. I thought was a bit of a a bit of a Le Bris tactical masterclass, to be honest, over Potter. I thought West Ham's wing backs did cause us a little bit of an issue at times. But I thought it was just classic Le Bris, wasn't it? This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to set up. I'm a pragmatist. I'm not bothered if you're going to have more of the ball. I'm not bothered if pundits say that we are unaesthetically pleasing or they don't like watching us. Like, we're going to come and we're going to win this game, and I'm not bothered if we have 12% possession or 13% possession. He's just, I love him in that sense. He's the anti-Russell Martin, isn't he? Coming up with Southampton and just trying to play out for the back. There was none of that really with Sunderland. They can pass it if they need to, of course they can, but it's about picking those moments. And ironically, now the pundits are starting to wake up the next day and praise Sunderland for being a bit more pragmatic because everybody's sick of seeing promoted teams get relegated.
Yeah, I saw Gary Neville, didn't he? He came out and said it was lovely to see Sunderland.
Very nice. Yeah, he was very complimentary of us.
Not do the sort of Ipswich style where you pass the ball on the back. But I think that's the one advantage that Sunderland have over both Leeds and Burnley. And I hate that. I know everyone is grouping them three together, and the discussion is a lot Leeds, Sunderland, Burnley because of what's happened with the newly promoted teams. But I think it's valid in a lot of ways to talk about it. And I think Sunderland, of the three, Farker is pretty regimented in how he plays. I don't know if their recruitment's very interesting. They're both big physical players. Yes, that's changed, and maybe they'll not be as heavy on the passing. But essentially, Daniel Farker football relies on you being technically the better team. That's what it relies on. Scott Parker football is defensive, rigid, but they got pumped 3-0 at the weekend and didn't look anywhere near as defensively sound.
And that's the thing about Scott Parker football in the Premier League is that I'm not really sure what it looks like because he's such a championship specialist, isn't he?
And then you've got Reggie, who doesn't have he doesn't have a style. He doesn't have like a specific, no, I am playing it out from the back. I am going to make sure that, the ball has to see all thirds of the pitch before it gets through. He doesn't look like that. He looks at every single game as, how can my players win this game of football? Following principles of things like, making sure you run a lot, making sure you're pressing at the correct times and blah, blah, blah. But it's all about, to him, how to win those individual games. And I don't think a lot of managers, I mean, you can even put in Graham Potter on this in the weekend. Graham Potter, I don't think, had thought massively about how Sunderland play. He just went lined his team up and went, this is how we play, and I don't care.
And it's interesting that, isn't it? Because games hinge on moments, but I thought for 20 minutes of the first half, West Ham looked quite good. There was the Robin Roof save. I think Ronaldo nicked one off Bowen in the box, and obviously there was the Dan Ballard clearance. Now, all of those things have to be done. The save needs to be made. The defenders need to do the job. But it's interesting, isn't it, that Sunderland won that game deservedly, but yet West Ham still had moments, and I think we're going to have to probably get used to that in the Premier League. Again, I go back to the 4-2 Liverpool-Bournemouth game the other day. Liverpool were 2-0 up and cruising, and the game hinged off a Szoboszlai mistake, and all of a sudden Bournemouth were right back into it. And I think we might have to get used to that, with it. There's going to be a lot of back and forth in the Premier League.
Yeah, and also, the quality of the Sunderland goals, all three goals, was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
You're not going to score goals of that level in the Premier League every week. I mean, I think it was 0.7 XG or something. Funnily enough, they missed their easiest chance of the game. The
big Diarra. Yeah.
But the XG, you're not going to score 3 goals off 0.7. I know people don't care about XG, but I think it's a pretty good indicator of where a game is. And you're not always going to do that. Next week against Burnley, who, I mean, that's a fascinating matchup in itself. But next week against Burnley,
we definitely owe them one as well from last time.
Yeah, if we get a penalty,
it's got to be. You've got to bring them on, yeah.
Yeah, surely it's Granit Xhaka on penalties though. Surely, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's just really fascinating where the club is right now, and I'm really looking forward to the next few games to see.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Burnley and Brentford and Palace, but Burnley and Brentford in particular coming up, and they've both had stinkers on the opening day. The fact we've won our game takes a lot of pressure off. If we'd lost at the weekend and we're going to Burnley, and both teams have lost, you have to, and I think it is a must-win for Sunderland. Don't get us wrong, but the pressure is not as strong on us as it is on them, because if they lose that game at the weekend, they probably think already this is going to be a horrendous season.
Well, and there was the stat emerged, wasn't there, that no newly promoted side won until October last season in the Premier League, which is it's just insane. So for Sunderland to do it on the opening day, it ticks a lot of boxes. I want to talk about the two wingers, Connor, because I didn't really say this publicly because it is just pre-season and obviously there's a bedding in process and that cost a lot of money and just generally don't like to be too negative. But Talby and Adingra, I wasn't really too impressed with them during pre-season. They didn't really catch me eye. You could tell they had a bit of talent. So I was interested to see coming into the Premier League season how they would do against West Ham. I thought both of them were really, really solid, particularly from a defensive point of view. Both of them got assists as well. And while they weren't sort of in full flow in an attacking sense, I actually thought they were really solid for the debuts.
Yeah, it's difficult to argue against everything you've said there. I would agree entirely with everything you said there. But
stop the podcast.
No, I think the thing with Talby in particular is I've seen a lot of criticism on him, and I think people every year, because we are so obsessed with football, like people who love Sunderland and football generally, they're obsessed. You watch preseason games. I've watched every preseason game apart from one.
Yeah.
And when you do that, what that means is you obsess over things because you treat them like a normal match, even though they're not as important. You do, and you look at it and you go, "Oh, Talby just looks like he's not in the game." I thought like at times he looked like quite weak and he wasn't dribbling past men. And then you see it on Saturday when it means something, when the game matters, and everyone goes up probably 60, 70%. They're willing to, stretch for the extra ball. Because if you think a footballer, if you're playing a preseason game and you can stretch to a ball, but you think, oh, actually, there's maybe like a 5% chance I might overstretch and do something.
Yeah, of course.
You're not going to do it, are you? If there's a 50-50 challenge, you're not going to go for it because why would you? The game means nothing. And then you see the game actually start on Saturday. You see that intensity is like up. I mean, if you were at the Rio Vallecano game, I know it was like a mixed team, but the intensity in that game from Sunderland
it's just not there,
non-existent. It was non-existent. And you watch on Saturday. I mean, I would be interested to see what the mileage was of the Sunderland team as an 11 on Saturday compared to what it was against Vallecano in other games in pre-season. And I bet you it's massively up. Every player's putting in probably an extra 2 or 3 kilometers. And that's the difference. That you can't read too much into pre-season. Too much. And this is what we saw at the end of last season, didn't we? When we basically had a pre-season within the season. And
absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Sunderland draw in Dortmund and then get relegated. I mean, last season we went to Bradford and we weren't very good at all, to be honest. I think the standout that day was Romain Mundle. But yeah, it is hard to draw conclusions from pre-season. But when you're running a YouTube channel and trying to write stuff for the Sunderland Echo, you do need to come up with some stuff as well. So it's definitely a fine balance. In terms of the day itself, though, Connor, and the game, I mean, clean sheet, first win at home, first win in the Premier League after promotion, and both your forwards score. And there's always a little bit of a question, well, not even a little bit, a massive question over promoted forwards coming up from the Championship to the Premier League. Can they adapt? Will they be able to score? And they've both managed it. I mean, it's dreamland, isn't it, really?
Absolutely. Remember where we were 12 months ago when everyone was saying Sunderland forwards basically just haven't scored a goal. I think we got like one Russian goal at Middlesbrough.
And getting rejected by Kiefer Moore and stuff like that. And now we've got 2 really, really good strikers.
To be fair to Kiefer Moore, though, he's done more solid. Like,
oh yeah, you definitely repaid the faith, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely did. He did more on a Sheffield United shirt than he probably ever could have done in a Sunderland shirt. So
yeah, you just know he would have flopped as well. You just know.
Yeah, he would have. But no, I think getting your forwards on the score sheet. I feel like Mayenda and Isidore suit Premier League football. I feel like the two players
completely agree.
And as well with the way that, because people talk about the difference between Sunderland sort of in the first half of last season and the second half, and actually what the difference is the opposition went, oh, Sunderland are actually really good, so we're going to have to play in a low block. That's why Sunderland in the second half of the season were not as good going forward and not as exciting. It's just because at the start of the season, teams thought Sunderland were rubbish. Oh, we're a bottom half team.
I mean, the Sheffield Wednesday game is a perfect example of that, wasn't it?
Do you think Danny Roll wouldn't have approached that game if he played Sunderland in April? He wouldn't have approached it in the same way. But what we'll see in the Premier League is that teams will probably give a little bit of disrespect to Sunderland. I don't mean that in like they're in the dressing room taking the mick out of them, but I just mean they will look at the game and go, right, we can play our game, we can dominate the ball, we can do all these things. That plays into how we like to play, which is in the transition. And Isidore's goal, that third goal he scored yesterday, which was not a carbon copy, but very similar to the one he scored at Coventry, when Coventry were doing what Premier League teams do, i.e. pinning you in, he will get a lot more chances this season. And he's such a good transition player. And Mayenda's exactly the same. He's a good transition player. We will benefit from that this season. The concern is if managers cotton on and go, oh, actually, we're not willing to let Sunderland give us the ball, and we're going to have to try and play our game to play against Sunderland. But I don't think Premier League teams will do that. I think they'll stick to their way because they'll look at Sunderland as newly promoted and think we can dominate them in the areas we want to dominate. But it's good news for us. I think we'll see, not similar, we'll not win every game 3-0. We'll see games like Saturday at the Stadium a lot this season where we're able to hit teams on counter-attacks and surprise them in the way that we play.
And suddenly as well, there's a little bit of depth development. I mean, we've still got the lad on loan from Chelsea to come in. There's competition for places all over the pitch, and I think that's a really good thing. A lot's been said about the midfield and particularly on the wings with the likes of sort of Dan Neil, Chris Rigg or Patrick Roberts, but I see that as a really good thing. I think players need to be pushed, they need to be challenged. What better person from Dan Neil and Chris Rigg to learn from than Granit Xhaka? He's going to set the standard. He's going to sort of drag them up, and I think the players that are still at the club are going to relish it, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No, and it can't. I think if the players are sulking about it, if one of the players who was established in the team last season is whinging, I can't believe it, I've helped you get promoted, and now you've dropped us. But they'll watch that game on Saturday and think, well, that's the standard. Daniel will look at that and go, Patrick Roberts will look at that and they'll go, wow, okay, that's the level I need to reach to get into this team and get this team going. Because, I love those players. I love Dan Neil. I think Dan Neil gets such a hard press. He's such a good footballer.
He does. He gets a ridiculous press from, I think, mostly from people on social media, I would say, but it offends me. It actually offends me and it hurts me feelings when sort of the likes of Dan Neil and Patrick Roberts are almost discarded as not good enough. And I'm like, do you know what they've done for the club? Like, it's insane. It's insane to me, that.
It is. And I think that those players do have a part to play for Sunderland this season. But I think Reggie's, hinted at this. He said that they need to find the level. I think he said with Dan Neil, he's learning off Xhaka. He's only 23 years old. He's basically saying Dan Neil needs to figure out how to be a Premier League player and learn off the players that we've brought in. That's essentially what he's saying. So I think it's a shame that we're not seeing these players, but at the end of the day, you look at that team on Saturday and it's incredible. But also, I hope, I'm going to jump the gun here potentially, but I hope we're going to at least talk about Omar Alderete.
I was just about to say that was my next point, that even in adversity, it went well for Sunderland. Obviously, Jensen Seal picks up the injury. Heartbreaking for him because he's had injury problems. Thankfully, it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. But he goes off the pitch and suddenly Alderete comes on and he's absolutely fantastic. I've heard the words Stan Varga and Arsenal mentioned a couple of times about him for those that know. But yeah, I mean, what an introduction. He looks a player and a snippet, 10 million quid as well. I was reading some comments from the Getafe president and they're gutted to lose him for that price as well. So, I mean, all hail the recruitment model at the moment, I think.
Absolutely. Although Getafe did win 2-0 yesterday, clean sheet, so well done there. They didn't miss him that much. But no, he came on and he was just different. When you watch a player and like Sealed, he had a good game and like nothing against him.
Yeah, he was decent, yeah.
It's not a dig on him.
But he can't do that with his left foot for my end, can he? Listen.
No. It was a centre-back. I didn't actually realise in the game that it was Alderete. I just thought because of where the cross came from, I just presumed it was probably Ronaldo or that had played the ball. And then actually afterwards, I was watching the game back and I was like, is that our new centre-half who, like, as well, would seem that he had, like, awful... His long passing was good, but his short passing was not great.
Well, it was, terrible because Getafe just didn't have the ball last season, did they?
Yeah. So, like, you kind of... When I'd looked at this, I was like, oh, well, like, is this guy just... And for Football Manager players, they're called no-nonsense defenders. Is he just literally like a head kick, I'll defend it, and that's it? And he absolutely is not. Like, this is a guy who's just played in a David Beckham-esque ball. Also from, like, probably 50 yards out. Like, not on the wing. He's like, sort of between the halfway line and the box, and he's played this unbelievable cross. Perfect to Mayenda. Mayenda, who's probably about 4 inches shorter than the West Ham centre back.
And up against three centre backs as well, and
Three centre-backs. And he's
to
managed to do it. And you're like, that's incredible. But that is like the different class that you get when you move up a level and you're able to sign a player like that. Like it's bizarre. And I just
a word for Ronaldo as well for Ballard's goal when he steps out with the ball. I thought that was. I mean, he was in the right back position as well. He gets the ball, has the wherewithal to sort of step out in front of two West Ham players, gives it to Adingra, and he bends it in. I guess again that's sort of welcome to the Premier League, and we should expect defenders to be involved quite heavily in the build-up play because that's the quality you've got all over the pitch. And I'm not saying Sunderland's fullbacks over the years in the Championship haven't been good, because they have been, but this feels like a little bit of another level.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And like Ronaldo and Hume, to be fair, actually, I think Hume, we must say, like nothing came down his side all game.
He's so good. He's one of my favourite ever Sunderland players. Yeah. Like 250 grand from Linfield, for God's sake. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely incredible. Like he snuffed everything that came onto his side. There was a few times I tried long balls and he was just able to read them. So like fair play, Trey Hume, absolutely fantastic. Ronaldo, I thought he was just composed. Like he just added just that experience, and you can just tell that he's played a lot of games at a very high level. He's played in the Diego Simeone team. Like he knows what he's doing, and it's these that it's not a flashy signing. When Ronaldo came in, it wasn't looked at. It was like, oh, it's a free transfer. He's 31, and Sunderland fans are conditioned to think that a 31-year-old is basically a walking stick. And you look at him and he's quality. You look at his running stats. He's ran pretty much the most of any player that we had at the weekend, and just fair play. Like fair play for the club getting that sort of deal done. Like I think it's fascinating, and I would love to have been behind the scenes. I wish Netflix were about for the summer.
I mean, they must be fuming having covered like the League One bit and then a little bit of the promotion season, and then all of a sudden all of this good stuff's happened and they're not around to do it.
Yeah, well, they probably are, but I think imagine looking in and seeing what the conversations were at the club. When the club won the playoff final, they clearly had a plan pretty much just there to be executed for when they went up. I mean, we have got pretty much a full strength team brought in by the first game of the season. There's 2 weeks left of the transfer window.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
Historically, we do not do things like that. I mean, in the Championship, we found signing players in advance very difficult.
Exactly. And if you look at every other team in the Premier League, Leeds won the league, I think it was the 4th of May that the season finished in the Championship. The Premier League, the relegation was settled from about Christmas. So every team in the Premier League had time to know what they were doing. We had the least time by a mile. We were probably at least 6 weeks behind every team in the Premier League and Championship who were going in there. And we have been the most forward team in the transfer market. Look at the issues that Newcastle have had in the transfer market. Look at what we've done. We've had everything sounded. We had Ronaldo. They must have been talking to Ronaldo and saying to him probably a while ago, if we go up.
There must have been conversations going on, but like before the regular season ended, really. There has to have been.
Do you think as a fan, though, that's really reassuring that the club is so forward? Think even everything to do with the stadium, that just doesn't happen. You don't just win promotion and go, right, we can spend 10 million quid doing the stadium. They obviously knew that was like, right, we're going to do these things if we go up, and it's planned, it's there, ready to go. And I think everything at the club right now, for everything from when that Black Cats Bar incident happened with Newcastle.
Yeah. Blessing in disguise, maybe.
Horrendous. But from that point on, they brought in David Bruce.
He's done a good job.
The club is just really taken itself up to a Premier League level. Like, it is a Premier League football club right now. It's not when we fell into League One, we were like we were pretending we were a Premier League football club, but actually we were a tin pot League One club. That's what we turned into. And now this is a genuine like Premier League football club.
I mean, that's what I like. I've talked about it quite a lot, but holistically, and you've touched upon it, Sunderland are investing in every area of the football club. It's not just about the playing staff. I mean, they've bolstered the backroom staff with Gasolfi coming in. Obviously, Régis Le Bris has had a few more assistants. They've got the specialist set piece coach now. They've invested at the Academy of Light as well, significantly modernising that, and it's such a great facility, the Academy of Light. But it doesn't take long for these things to slip, and when you don't get investment over a long period of time, suddenly that jewel in the crown can decay quite quickly. Again, the Stadium of Light's needed some stuff doing it for a while, but that's happening. But the little things as well, like the shirts, listening about the Hummel deal, I think people feel very connected, don't they? And that's good. I want to get back to matters on the field because I want to talk about Dan Ballard and Robin Roofs, because obviously, I mean, Dan Ballard, what more can you say? Just an absolute colossus. And I thought Robin Roofs' debut was really, really, really solid. Command of his area, good with his feet, saved his shots when he need to. I mean, again, at 10 million quid or 11 million quid, however much he cost, he could be a real bargain.
Yeah, Robin Roofs massively impressed me. Like I if not often you bring in a keeper that has that sense of like calmness. And when the West Ham had corners, and he's just like, if you put this anywhere near my 6-yard box, I am punching it. I don't care. I am getting there. And you look at Manchester United yesterday and their keeper, and he's got no command of his box. And Arsenal, Saliba's able to just move him out the way, and obviously the score.
That was really poor. That, to be fair, that was so poor. I mean, he just needs to. I mean, goalkeepers get so much protection anyway. I don't know what he's expecting, but just go over the top of him and get the ball, and you'll get the foul. You'll if you miss it, you'll get the foul.
And Roofs won't allow that. I say that we'll play Arsenal, and that'll probably happen. But Roofs won't do that. Like, you can tell with him, he's so big. He's got such a command. He's so calm. For a player that's only played 1 year of professional top-level football, he looks like a seasoned pro. He's like 22 years old. He reminds me a lot of when we brought in like Mignolet, although Mignolet didn't have a great debut. But when Mignolet like got going, he had that sort of feeling of such a calm goalkeeper who was just reliable and didn't make many mistakes. And this guy, I think, is exactly that. His command of that 6-yard box is better than any keeper I've seen at Sunderland for. Obviously, we've been in League One, to be fair, but for a long time, I've not seen a keeper be able to come out and just get that ball out, punch it. I'm going to win it no matter what, and that's incredible.
I mean, and I like Anthony Patterson. I'm very appreciative of what he's done for the club. You know, I'd back him, and I think he does have a future. But it's having watched Robin Roofs, it's clear to see why they've brought him in, because he does the things that perhaps Patterson isn't as good at. And
yeah, I agree. And I think that the club, look at when Thomas Frank did that interview on Monday Night Football a few years ago, and they asked him, how does a newly promoted team stay up? And he was like, you've got to be really good at set pieces. You've got to be able to defend them and score them. And I know at the weekend, technically, we didn't score a set piece, but we scored set piece-esque goals. You know,
we did, yeah, we definitely did.
Yeah, and that's crosses from deep, clearly something they've talked about. We're going to cross the ball in from deep and attack those balls. And you see it on the defensive set pieces. Alderete wins the header to start the Isidore goal because he's so strong in the air. And the goalkeeper, and the reason why West Ham had to play that ball all the way at the edge of the box, the corner, was because they knew that every time they were hitting it in the 6-yard box, our keeper was punching it out the way, and they weren't able to get any look on it. And that's what the club have done. They've looked at their recruitment, and it's so clear that they've went, we need a goalkeeper who is strong to command crosses of the ball. And they've literally picked up the keeper that was the best at it in Europe last season that they could attain. So that's what they've
done. Haven't also missed out on a couple of targets as well. So I think that just goes to show the level of depth in the scouting department, because I mean, God, Connor, how many times over the years have we had a target in mind, particularly in the Premier League days? Barini, for example, when we couldn't get Barini the first time, it felt like the sky was going to fall in, didn't it? And we didn't really get anybody else. It felt for a long time that Sunderland used to fixate on these transfer targets. We, more often than not, we wouldn't get them, and then that would be us in a relegation struggle again. But now, obviously, football's moved on a little bit from there. But we have a list of targets that we go through now.
Exactly. And it's so well planned. You look at all the players that they've brought in this summer. The only one that I think doesn't really fit what I expected was the Masuaku signing. That felt a bit left field and a bit random. I don't know if that was, because I've seen as well people saying that actually that might be the left wing, because he can't play forward. It could potentially be that because they didn't get Loriente and they weren't happy with their other targets, maybe they thought, right, well, we'll bring him in and he can play left back, left wing, and that can help sort of cover that area of the pitch. That's the only one that to me didn't really make sense. But every other player, I totally understand the logic as to why they bought them in, and that's fair play. They clearly had like Diarra when he came in, they sold Bellingham and they just went, we're going to use that money to buy this lad over here. And right now, I mean, I was talking to the people I go to the match with, and I was like, right now, I know we've just won 3-0, but would you rather have Job or would you rather have that midfield that they've built today?
Yeah.
You'd probably pick the midfield that they've built.
I wrote a little bit about this. It's coming out at 11:30 on the website. Shameless plug, but it's incredible, really, how quickly we've all forgotten about Joe Bellingham. I mean, this high-profile £30 million exit, box-to-box midfield that we all loved, embraced the club, really took us to heart, and we've forgotten about him already. And it's no criticism of him. It just goes to show how well I think Sunderland have managed that situation.
Yeah, and I don't know. Do you ever watch the YouTube channel All Ending? I don't know if you've seen.
Yes, he's very, very good. Very good indeed.
And he did a video before the start of the season, and he's obviously just so much more sort of clued into this sort of stuff than me. I'm very like observant. I just like watch the game and go, "That is good.
Well,
that is bad."
I'm gonna get him on instead of you next week.
Yeah, you could try. So, but I watched his video anyway, and he before the start of the season, he was talking about how Sunderland have targeted 20 million plus signings and how that makes a massive difference. Like Ipswich didn't do that last season. Leeds have largely not spent above 20 million pounds as far as I'm aware this season. They've largely went under, and we've brought in I think 4 or 5 20 million pound players, and then we've also brought in players that look at like Siddiqui and Granit Xhaka. Obviously, you know, if you were to sell Siddiqui today, what would you get for Siddiqui right now? His value
is probably another 5 or 10 million on them, like definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So like he pointed out though that while Sunderland are writing while people are writing Sunderland off right now, the reality is we've been able to close that gap by signing in those level of players. You know, that means that we've got as many 20 million pound plus players as Wolves. You know, and that should stand us in very good stead this season. And I think again that comes back to the plan at the club. And you've also got players in there like Ballard, who you kind of touched on before. He looks like he is built to play in the Premier League. He didn't look out of place at the weekend. So that's another player that if you sold him tomorrow, you'd probably be commanding somewhere in the region of 15 to 20 million pounds.
Yeah, I think so. Possibly even higher. It's interesting you mentioned the Masuaku transfer and how it doesn't really fit in with Sunderland, and I completely agree. But don't you think that this sort of recruitment model, they do like a bit of a left field gamble every now and again? Just if it's in budget, they'll go for like a bit of a maverick, like a Pervader. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's interesting to me how they seem to get all of this business done, and they've done it historically in the Championship as well. And then they'll go and have a little bit of a gamble on somebody that could be maybe a little bit special, but we're not quite sure on it. I do find that interesting, actually.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think that, I suppose, the reality is you're never going to hit every transfer 100. This is not me writing off Masuaku. I'm not saying that he's going to be terrible, but you're not going to get every transfer 100%. And maybe it's just a case of, you know, backing yourself, isn't it? It's backing yourself to go, do you know what? Our data suggests that Masuaku is going to be a very, very good player for us. And he's happy to come in and probably be cover for left back and left wing. He's cheap. He's a free transfer, and it helps us to be able to add elsewhere in the squad. And they probably just thought, yep, it's possibly is a data signing. It's possibly that he fits the way that they play. He's quick, he's physical. All the stuff I've read on him suggests that he's good aerially, gets up and down the pitch, is pretty good in an attacking sense.
And he loves a step over as well, apparently.
Yeah,
which for a left back is great.
Yeah, and that's probably what they've looked at though, and they've went, you know what? We're probably going to be able to get him in quite cheap. He's probably happy to be a cover player, and he's got Premier League experience. Happy days.
What more can you ask for? Yes, we have. We've got people watching from Australia. 2 people from Australia, actually, which is very nice. But we are going to end it there because we've gone for 43 minutes. I could probably do another 43 minutes, I think, Connor, but we've got other things to do, and everybody else has got better things to do, I'm sure. But please tell us about what you're up to at the moment. You were at the Daily Mirror. Now you've gone off and down on the YouTube route. Please plug that and tell us all where you can find it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I left the Daily Mirror in the start of July. No, technically the start of August, but yeah, start of July-ish. And because I've been an unemployed bum, I've been like really, really busy. So I've got my own YouTube channel, which covers Sunderland, which is just my name, Connor Bromley. I also have a YouTube channel that covers sort of outside the big teams in the Premier League because nobody's doing that. And I've also written a book, which I haven't released yet, but I have a book that will be coming out soon.
Oh, nice. What is it?
Tell us about it. Tell you about this.
No, you didn't. Crossword book. Nice.
Yeah, so I was just sort of thinking about things that I could do that fits my niche. So I've written the book. It's all printed. I'm just waiting to have the club approve it and say that I'm allowed to use a picture of the same light. So hopefully I'll get that this week, and then it
It'll
should
be
be hitting,
sometime next year. That'll be then.
yeah, it should be hitting shelves probably at some point. I'm hoping that I can get it actually on sale by the Brentford game.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, that'd be class.
So a quick turnaround. So I think I'll be going through a Love Supreme, but I've not crossed the I's and dotted the T's on that. But yeah,
you know, 3 copies sent to the Sunderland Echo in exchange for good reviews. You know, never. I'm joking, of course. We are impartial.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'll do you a nice signed copy.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, Conor Bromley. That's what I needed. You know, coming into the Christmas period was a signed Sunderland crossword plus a book from Conor Bromley.
You've got a nice blank space on your wall there, so you could just put a nice framed. I could do you like a framed piece just to go on that shoulder.
I actually really need to up my game in terms of like backgrounds because I haven't got a good background in this house. But in fairness, we have been renovating it. So, but yeah, there's only one piece of Sunderland memorabilia on the wall, and it's Clive Tilsley's commentary chart from the Sheffield United game. So that wouldn't really translate well to camera because it's just all. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's just all little writing that you wouldn't be able to read.
There, it's a good bit though. Is it like original?
It's like a reprint, but he sent me it. Actually, he was really nice. I think he contacted me and a couple of other people just for various different bits of stats, which was bizarre. Getting a call from Clive Tilsley before the Sheffield United game was crazy. So he sent me one, which was really nice. I think he did like similar for Roker Report as well. I think he's very meticulous in his research. He gets in contact with local reporters, fanzines, and stuff like that. So yeah, really nice guy actually.
No, I've had some dealings with him in the Mirror. He had a podcast with Martin O'Neill. I don't know if it's still going, but them two had a podcast.
I used to listen to that, but it stopped. It was on Global, wasn't it? And it's gone the distance. I think I might ask him about it.
I remember I interviewed Martin O'Neill and I was just fangirling him the whole time.
Oh, that like 8 months under Martin O'Neill was bloody amazing. It was one of the best periods ever.
That's pretty much what I was saying to him. It's like
it's just incredible. It was brilliant. The G goal. I mean. Yeah, that 3-3 Man City game as well. Do you remember that? That was that was tremendous.
Austin scored.
Yeah, twice I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, good.
Crazy. Anyway, we are seriously digressing.
Added time. That's what I heard.
Yeah, added time. We'll definitely do another one of these because I think there's definitely mileage in them, isn't there?
Oh my god, yeah. Just contact me as an unemployed bum. I'm pretty much always available, so you can get us anytime.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Conor. You can find Conor over on YouTube. Look out for his new book release as well on social media. Thank you for joining us at the Echo. You can look at all of the latest Sunderland content over on our website. And thank you once again for joining us.